Not every conversation needs to be loud. Not every disagreement needs to become hostile. And not every man is interested in spectacle. The society of ordinary gentlemen exists for those who believe that courtesy still matters, that restraint is a strength, and that how one conducts himself, especially when it is inconvenient, is a measure of character. This is not a platform for self-promotion. It is a place for thoughtful discussion, mutual respect, and personal accountability. The Society of Ordinary Gentlemen is an online community with the mission of cultivating modern gentlemen by teaching skills, habits, and mindsets that elevate personal style, communication, health, and lifestyle through community, courses, and mentorship. Membership is open to adults willing to uphold these standards.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Gem of Faith podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Buntyn, and it is indeed an honor to be back with you guys today. And today, I have a special guest in the studio with me today. And, this is the Gem of Faith podcast, but sometimes it's always great to get a perspective from a lady. So what better person to have than one of my siblings, my oldest sister. She is a remarkable woman. She has a lot of knowledge, a lot of depth. And we're talking about parenting in today's modern world as opposed to when we were growing up. So I think it's great that my sister can come on today. It's going to be fun because we're going to be talking about some things, and we're going to refer a lot back to when we were growing up and how things changed from when we were growing up as to today. So Angela, I want to welcome you to the Gentleman of Faith podcast. It's an honor to have you here. For our listeners and those that are watching, can you tell them a little bit about yourself?
Hello. Good afternoon. My name is Angela Fossey, and I want to thank Brother Anthony Buntyn for allowing me to come and inviting me. I am 62 years old, and I am married, and I had 2 children. I have one now. I lost one a couple of years ago at 29 years old. I have 4 grandchildren, and I am a graduate of Cardinal Stritch University. I have a bachelor's degree in business. Excuse me. I have written a couple of books. One is called Black Onyx, and that is a self-help book. And then I have also written Protective Measures, and that's about getting grandparent rights in different states and how the system is not really supportive of grandparents getting rights for the grandchildren. Also, I have a lot of experience in parenting because I used to be a daycare worker. I had my own daycare, and then also I have had my own children and raised grandchildren. But it's different raising kids now than it was when we were growing up. A lot different. And so when Anthony asked me to do this with him, I thought, oh, yeah, we're doing it. Because I know we had so much fun growing up as military kids. And that was different in itself. And then compared to what the kids are going through now and what we see some of the parents doing and what they are not doing. So let's get into it.
So, Angela, we grew up in a time period where it wasn't way back when there was segregation and a lot of things, but also at the same time, we grew up in an era where parents were very disciplined when it came to their kids. Now, our parents were strict. I mean, they weren't abusive, nothing like that, but they were strict as far as how we were raised. I mean, we were raised to yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, yes, sir, no, sir. And we were raised to respect adults, whether it was a teacher, police officer, or anything. And our parents made sure that they were involved in every aspect of our lives. And our father, who was an officer in the Air Force, also a full-time minister. And then our mom, she was a nurse. But they always made sure that they stayed active in our lives. And I know, things have changed a lot with modern technology and stuff. But what is your aspect on how we were raised and compared to what you're seeing right now, how some parents are raising the kids? And granted, I know that not everybody's the same, but overall, what is your take on how the children nowadays are being raised compared to when we were being raised?
Well, I think when we were being raised, it was I think it's not that our parents were professional parents or had some parenting classes or anything like that, but they loved us, and we were born in love. Our parents were married when we were born, and so they made sure that they wanted to have a good life for us, and so they worked hard, and they didn't let their careers get involved with not making sure that their children had what they needed. They always looked at their children as a reflection of them. So they were college graduates, and they wanted us to make sure that we made it that far. They made sure that we all had good, healthy meals every night. We all sat down and talked. They made sure they knew who we were. They wanted us to know who each of us individually were individuals. They made sure that we weren't out here being bullied. They made sure that we knew, we were getting our lessons like we were supposed to. Uh, they just made sure that they were good parents to us, so that we could follow that, what they have been taught and what they had been praying for, and make sure that, we would be proud of them and they would be proud of us.
I think that's important because our dad working the way he did, and now I look back at it, I don't know how he did it, because working basically two full-time jobs, but yet he made sure that all of his kids were involved in some type of activity, whether it was Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, football, martial arts, band, choir. He made sure that he encouraged us to stay involved and to get involved in things. He laid
And he
that foundation for
Yeah,
us.
and he didn't let us give up. He didn't let us give up. If we got into something and we decided, I don't really want to do this, or no, that's all right. No, he made us stick to it because he didn't want us to be quitters.
Sure.
You know.
And I shared this several times on other podcasts. You know yourself that growing up, I had a very bad speech impediment. I
Mhm.
stuttered.
Mhm.
And mom and dad always encouraged me.
Mhm.
And even when I did want to speak up in class, I did
Yeah.
want to read, they encouraged me and gave me the motivation. And even now, here I am. I'm doing podcasts on 10 major platforms. I've taught medical classes in the military for several hundred soldiers at one time. I preached in several churches to hundreds of people at one time. I don't think I could have gotten as far as I have if it hadn't been for mom and dad
Yes.
encouraging us. And not just mom and
Right.
dad, but our parents made sure that the family, our uncles, our aunts, our
Mhm.
grandparents, they were all involved just as much as they were. And
Yeah.
even though we weren't around them all the time because we traveled in the military, but our family was very knit and very well known in the
Mhm.
Memphis area.
Mhm.
And that helped us have that foundation, and it kept us rooted. And I think that nowadays there is a disconnect when it comes to the children and the parents as far as what the structure line is.
Mhm.
I think a lot of parents are treating their children as friends more than they are parents. Do you find that?
I do find that. In fact, I've talked to several friends of mine that they actually go out with their children on like birthdays or anniversaries or whatever. They go out with them and they actually drink with them. They party with them. And I just think there should be a line. And this is, and I'm talking about not when they're in their 50s and 40s. I'm talking about at least they're 18 or they're 21, and they're going out with their parents at that age. To me, they're still young. They're just now starting to get their feet wet. I just don't think that's a time to go out with your parents. You shouldn't be partying with them. I just think that there still should be a line between parenting. I mean, between the parents and the child. Even though the child is grown by number, but by maturity, they're not really. They still make the 18-year-old mistakes. They still make the 16-year-old mistakes. They still have that mind. So they still should have their own, set of friends. And then you have your set of friends. If you're still having a party with the little young ones, then maybe something's wrong there.
Exactly.
Then I think that there should be a level of respect there. I think that there should be a level of discernment. I mean, not discernment, discernment, yes, but there should be a level of, I forgot, you said it earlier, just respect that they should have, to where they should not they should remain mother, daughter.
Even us, as we got grown and we got older, we would still go to mom and dad's house. If we didn't just open the door and walked in, we still knocked on the door.
Mhm.
If we wanted to get a drink of water, we would still ask mom, could we get a drink of
Mhm.
water? Not that they made us do that, but it's that
Right.
reverence that
Right.
we have
Right. That's what it
for
is.
our
Reverence.
parents.
Right.
And we heard mom and dad tell stories about when they were growing up, how strict their parents were.
Mhm.
And from what they told us, they were a little bit more lenient with us than what their parents were with them, but there was still that foundation. And
Mhm.
even now, my daughter, and I know with your kids, there was still we might not be as strict as we were as our parents were with us, but
Right.
that foundation of reverence of parent
Mhm.
and child still exists.
Right.
And I think it's important for families to have that because growing up, we had to rely on each other because we traveled a lot and stuff. And
Right.
so siblings, we argued and we fought, but we still had that foundation. And mom and dad always made sure that
Mhm.
we looked after each other, no matter how
Right.
mad we got. And I'm going to be transparent. A couple years ago, we went through a huge loss in our family. We lost our
Yeah.
mother, and then we lost our sister, and then you lost your daughter and my niece all within a span period of a year and a half to 2 years.
Yeah.
There was a lot going on, and me and you had a falling out, and we didn't talk for a long time.
Mhm.
But that foundation that our parents instilled in us made us realize that, hey, this is not what mom and dad wanted. This is not
Mhm.
what our grandparents would tolerate. And
Right.
so we reconciled. It was an emotional thing that was going on.
Mm.
And anytime that stuff happens, but if it hadn't been for that foundation that
Right.
we had, I
Right.
think that we would have never reconciled and stuff. And that's what we see right now. We see so many siblings that do not talk to each other anymore,
Right.
and
Right.
they don't have any connection. And some don't even have connection with their parents. Don't even check on the parents and stuff. Their
Right.
parents
Right.
raised them, and they have nothing to do with them.
Mhm.
So we grew up in a time period where if a parent or adult told you to do something, you did it.
Mhm.
And you didn't question them because if they said, because I said so, that was the end of
Mhm.
it. You didn't ask,
Mhm.
well, why you say so? I think kids have so much in their mindset of being entitlement. I remember a couple of years ago when Casey I think she was in junior high, but I remember I had FaceTimed her for something, and she was in the dining room, and I tell her she was in the corner, she was crying. I said, Angela, what's wrong with Casey? And you were telling me because you bought her some overalls, and she wanted to be like, walk around with half of it hanging down, and you told her you're going to wear them properly, and she kept doing it. So you had cut the top off and made jeans out of
Mhm.
and she was mad about that. And then apparently the police officers that came to her school that day to talk about career day and stuff, and the police officer was telling them that they have rights and stuff. So when she got home, she's already mad about that, and you told her to go clean a room or something, and she made a comment to you that the police came to school and they told her that she had rights, that she didn't have to do something. If you told her to do something that she had rights, you were like, so she's in the corner right now holding her right hand over her right eye. She has rights. But I remember Casey, she was a very sweet and loving girl. She was a
Mhm.
fun girl, but she also had that boundary that she knew. The
Mhm.
same way Michael, your son, does, the same way
Mhm.
Selena, my daughter, does. We raise them to have that boundaries. Nowadays, these kids, they got this entitlement, they think that they're equal to their parents.
Right.
And I think that this bleeds over into the school system and to
Mhm.
work and everything. So even like nowadays, we look back, corporal punishment was in the school systems and stuff,
Mhm. Mhm.
and they've done away with that. Do you think that that's something, and not just in school, but even at home, parents, they don't discipline their kids like they should? And I'm not saying about child abuse. I'm not saying beating them. But we know that the scripture says, spare the rod, spoil the child. We grew up that if we did something wrong, we got our behinds tore up.
Mhm.
I remember, and I'm sure you remember this, when I was in the second grade, I had a teacher, Miss Labotny, and I don't know, for some reason she didn't like me, but she had called dad and told dad that I did something that I didn't do.
Mhm.
And so when dad got home, I got my behind tore up. And I
Right.
remember you and Cindy coming home and asking what was going on, the amount what happened. And you guys were like, no, that's not what happened.
Mhm.
Because the kids at school told us that Tony didn't do that. And so mom went and told dad, and dad went flying up to the school and got with the principal. The
Mhm.
teacher lost her job, and it was a big thing. But back then, if a teacher said that your child did this, or an adult said your child did this,
You did
that
it.
was that was it. And yeah, it wasn't perfect because yeah, the
Mhm.
teacher lied on me. It wasn't perfect, but it was that balance that kind of kept us in line too. So I mean, and we know that nobody's perfect. You know, there are going to
Right.
be some good teachers, there'll be some bad teachers, there's some good
Right.
parents, there's some parents. Do you find that we still have to have that foundation in our society, respecting that children expect adults?
I say beat their butts. No, never, no, not really. No, but see, the thing of it is, they've been taught in school, and it's been just engraved in them that they do have rights and that they do have an opinion. And when we were growing up, we didn't really have an opinion. Whatever they said, that's what you did. But now they have an opinion, and they have a right to say this, and they have a right to do this. And if you don't do it, then you're going to get in trouble, and you better not say nothing to them, or they're going to either come to arrest you. And that's what, and they know that the parents are scared of that, and they're scared to put their hands on their kids. They're scared to say certain things to their kids because their kids are going to go and tell, all you have to do is call 911. All you have to do is call 211 or whatever, the emergency number is, and somebody's going to protect them. So now they've gotten out of hand with it. And so now, they think they can do whatever they want, say whatever they want, or whatever, and nothing's going to happen to them. Even teachers now have gotten scared. They, the kids are so bad in school, the teachers won't even discipline them anymore. They won't say anything to them. They won't put them in the hallway. They won't put them in timeout. They won't do anything because they're scared. I mean, even the little kindergarten kids, bless their heart, they didn't gotten, so they say all kind of stuff to the teachers. They won't even do it. There's no parenting going on. There's no parenting going on at all. The parents are scared of the children. They're the children.
And I think excuse me, it goes a lot deeper when it comes to the family and parenting stuff, because I remember, we know that couples have arguments and stuff, but I can't even remember where our parents got into an argument and we heard a conversation. Mm-hmm. They might be in the room, but we never heard them argue. And when they came out of the room, they never demonstrated that they were mad at each other. But nowadays, we hear parents getting in verbal and physical confrontations in front of their kids.
Not only that, if we did hear something, we wouldn't dare comment on it.
No.
We're not going to say, well, Dad, I don't know why you said that to Mom. That is just beyond me, how these kids get involved in adult conversations.
Yeah.
Why would you say that?
I remember when our parents they would have parties at home. They invite people over. That old adage that kids are supposed to be seen and not heard.
Yeah.
We had to go back in our bedroom.
Absolutely.
We were in our bedroom. Mom would bring us some food from the party.
Right.
But our biggest thing was waiting till the party was over with, so we go in the living room and get what's left.
Right.
But
now there'll be, if it was a Christmas party, we'd be able to come down and pretend like we were serving everybody, and we hand out little hors d'oeuvres and stuff with our little Christmas outfits on, and like little elves, and we would serve.
As soon as over, you back upstairs.
Yeah, as soon as it was over, you better be back upstairs, and we would do that. But we couldn't be mingling downstairs with everybody else and drinking and I just want something to eat. No, you didn't do that.
Yeah, and we weren't allowed to, like you said, hang around and listen to adult conversation. No. That just never happened. My grandson asked me one day, he said, "Papa, why did you and your sisters and everybody look so young?" Mm-hmm. And I said, because when we were growing up, if we did something wrong, our parents will knock us into next week. So we done skipped a couple of years.
Exactly. That's right.
But our parents raised us to have that respect, and it carried on even to our I worked with some people that I didn't particularly like. I had bosses I didn't like, but I did confront them. I didn't cuss them out or anything like that, because we weren't raised like that.
Right.
We were taught how to handle situations. Now, I will say this. Our parents told us that we're to respect adults, but at the same time, Dad was always strict on us about fighting. He said, but if you do you have a right to defend yourself. And if you do get in a fight, he's like, you better win. And I remember
Regina Statler.
Yeah.
I hope you're listening right now, Regina Statler. You have scarred us, and now all three of us have PTSD.
Lord, I remember the year that we were in Myrtle Beach, and I went to Lakewood Annex. It was because the Lakewood school was overcrowded. That was our first year going to public school. The school I went to, there was only 2 blacks in the school, me and a girl, and the rest of them were white. And it was the same year that Roots came out. And I remember that week that Roots was showing, I had gotten in like 5 fights that week because of kids calling me, racial names, Kunta Kinte and N-word and stuff. And I remember that the last one I was in, I went to go sit down on the bus to go home, and the kid kicked me and said the N-word to the back. And so I stood up and I punched him. and the principal came and jerked me off the bus.
Mhm.
And I remember that because you were going to St. James at the time. And I
Mhm.
remember that the principal called dad at work and told dad that your son had gotten in a fight. And dad said, did he win? And the principal was like, well, that's beside the point. And my dad said, no, he said, because he knows not to fight unless he has to. And if
Mhm.
he has to, he better win. And so dad asked to speak to me, asked what happened. I told him what happened. And I remember dad flew up to the school to the point where the military police were behind him. And I
Mhm.
remember I was sitting outside the principal's office, and I remember dad going in there. I remember the door closing. I remember furniture being moved. I remember the military police coming in. I remember the Myrtle Beach police showing up. And I remember the principal came out in cuffs because it ended up on the news and stuff. And
Mhm.
dad defended us because I was being bullied. And so
Right.
he raised us not to fight
Mhm.
unless we have to, but he
Right.
also stood behind it because he knew that because he made us, you do not fight unless
Right.
you have to.
Right.
And so he defended us. I think that great for parents to do that,
Right.
but he also raised us that you better not go out and start bullying people.
Start
You
a
better not
fight.
go out and
Right.
start
Exactly.
fights.
Exactly.
But now we see parents are, I mean, there are kids getting in fights at school and stuff, and
They
parents,
encourage it.
yeah, they're encouraging their kids to
Mhm.
do it.
Mhm.
There's something seriously wrong with this, and
Right.
not the parenting nowadays has differed so much. But we, as the older generation, we need to start correcting this stuff. We need to start, and I love the fact that you've been writing books about this stuff because
Mhm.
this is what needs to happen because it's only getting worse every generation. Every generation is getting worse and worse.
Mhm.
I'm so tired of hearing these young parents cussing their kids out in public.
Right. Right.
I mean, literally calling them different
Mhm.
words and stuff and telling them
Yeah.
they're going to beat their out in
Mhm.
public. We didn't do that. And you said earlier that if we acted up in the store, we
Mhm.
were taken to the bathroom
Right.
and
When we
we,
came out,
yeah, and we were dealt with it in the bathroom. And like you said, when you came out,
no
you had told
tears.
them after.
That's right.
Right. Just like in church, you acted up in church. The last thing you wanted was for your parents to take you out of church and take you
That's
down to the
right.
basement because you knew what was going to happen.
Right.
And we had a fear of our parents, but it was a
Right.
fear of reverence. It was a fear of not
Right.
that they were going to abuse us, but it was a fear that we're going to get disciplined. And I think that is so important because it gave us that foundation that we have. And so let me
Right.
ask you, how do you feel that the shift from the strict authorization and discipline that we had then and now, how do you think that it's affecting kids? Do you think more kids are, like you said earlier, they have that self entitlement and parents are afraid to discipline their kids? Do you think that some of that also is just the fact that some of these parents grew up in broken homes and they didn't have that? We're
Yeah.
blessed. We had a mother and father in our lives.
Yeah.
And not that it justifies it, but I mean, do you think that this has something to do with it?
I do. I think a lot of it is that they're a product of their environment. I think that a lot of times they didn't have a healthy home to grow up in, and we were very blessed to have the parents that we had. I thank God for them. But a lot of kids did not have that. But sometimes I wonder though, in my mind, that if I didn't have that when I was growing up, it seems to me that I would want better for mine, so I would try harder to do better for them because I did not have it. And but some people, I guess some don't look at it that way. They just want things. It's a curse, and they just want things the same like they had it, and it just keeps going generational. So it has to be broken, though. And we all know there's only one person that can do that. But
Angela, it's interesting that you said that because you hear so many people that say that, well, I grew up in the projects or I grew up this and that.
mhm.
And so, but you don't have to be like that. Like
No,
you
you
said,
don't. It's a choice.
you would think that you would want better for
Hmm.
your children.
Right.
And we know a lot of famous people that grew up with single parents,
Hmm.
that grew up in the projects. But what did
Right.
they do? They worked their
That
way
change.
out of it and they
Yes.
made a better life for themselves
Right.
and they made a
Right.
better life for their kids
Right.
instead of, like you said, repeating that cycle.
Right.
And one thing on the Gentleman of Faith podcast that we talk about is about men being responsible and
Mm.
taking the head of the household. Granted, I'm not negating a single mother. That's please, I'm not negating
Right.
that because there are single mothers that are doing tremendous jobs raising
Right.
kids.
Exactly.
But my point is, there are some fathers out there who kid lives 2 blocks away and they have nothing to do with them. They think that just give me a $200 a week child support is enough. No, they need both parents in their life. Whether you intentionally had a child or whether they have an unintentional, the fact of the matter is it took both of you to have that child.
Right.
And so you are both responsible for
Exactly.
raising that child.
And just a note, and I'm just going to say this on behalf of the women of the world, is the most sexiest thing that a woman can see is a man that's taking care of his children. It's very sexy for a man to take responsibility for his children. And I'm not saying that someone is out here faking, because we can tell when you're faking, but I'm talking about someone that's generally involved with their children, knows their children's names, picks them up, talking to their kids, know what their teachers' names are, know what the children's friends' names are. That is so impressive to a woman.
And Angela, is even nowadays, it's important. I mean, granted, when we were growing up, we used to go out and play, and you got up in the morning, you went out, and you were gone all day. You came here for lunch, and then you went back out. It wasn't that coming inside the house every 5 minutes, because our parents like, you come in one more time, you're gonna stay inside.
That's
and
right,
you didn't
right,
want that. If you want something to drink, you better get that garden hose at the back of the house.
Right.
But at the same time, our parents knew where we were. And I mean, sometimes we might be down the street or we might be over, and we lived on a military base, so it was pretty secure. But at the same time, even though it was secure, mom and dad made us tell them where we were going.
Right.
And when they told us to be back at a certain time, you better be back at a certain time. But our parents knew exactly where we were. And our parents knew our friends. They knew where we were. They knew who we were hanging out with. They made sure that they knew everything about. When we were growing up, they had to make TV commercials to remind our parents that they had kids.
Exactly.
Do you know where your kids are?
Do you not know where your children are?
Or know what's going on? I mean, we hear on the news so much about these kids that are going on shooting sprees and all this, and the parents like, well, I didn't know. You didn't want to know.
Right. You didn't want to know. You didn't want
You
to know.
I mean, let's be real. You did not try to find out what was going on with your kid. And I tell this to all the time. Our dad had a memory like I don't know what. We used to laugh because dad had all those books in his office, and you can go in his office, you can move one thing.
He knew anything that was touched or moved.
Yeah,
he knew about
you can move one, and we used to laugh at because he would walk in and go, who moved that book? And sometimes we do just see if he pick up. I never forget one year we were in North Dakota. We had the morning service, we had the evening service, and they saw us watch football. In between, we saw us go down in the basement and play. That was our play area down in the basement.
Right.
And I remember one Sunday I came up and Dad was sitting in the chair looking at the game before he went to go work on his sermon. And I remember sneaking behind him, and I never forget, Dad never turned around. He just said, you can think about it, but don't do it. And I started laughing. I was like, how would you know? He said, son, whatever you think about doing it, I've already done it, got caught doing it. He said, you can think about it, but don't do it. But that's how in tune our parents were with us.
They were very in tune.
And they knew when something was bothering us. They knew when something wasn't right.
You weren't feeling good. They knew.
Yeah. And they also knew whenever you were faking too. So parents nowadays, they're not trying to get to know their kids. I think that some of these parents have this misconception like, well, I don't want to invade their privacy. What privacy? You're a child.
We didn't have privacy. This is my mama's house.
Yeah. I mean, our parents were all up in our business. I mean, they knew who we were dating.
Right. Get out of my backpack.
Yeah.
What?
Our parents made sure that they knew every aspect. I think this is something that has become dormant in raising kids, and it's gotten worse even now with social media and stuff. Because we're letting social media raise our kids. You got little kids having Facebook pages and Instagram and stuff. We couldn't even go to a movie without our parents knowing what the name of the movie was. And if we said we were going to see that movie, you better went to go see that movie.
What time did the movie play? What time did it get out?
Right.
I think what needs to happen really is, and we're not saying that all parents are bad, because they're not.
No, not at all.
What we're saying is that there needs to be a call to have parents take back their children.
Yes.
They need to take back their children. Stop letting social media raise the kids. Stop letting these video games raise the children. Stop letting these schools raise these children. Raise your own children. We need to take back our kids.
Sometimes you hear these parents say, I I can't do nothing with him.
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean you can't do nothing with him?
Right.
Our parents say to her, I brought you this one, I'll take you out.
I just don't
I can
think
make
there's
another
any.
one.
There's.
I can make
I
another one
don't.
look just like you.
Right. I don't think there's any child that I could have that I cannot do anything with. I don't understand that. That's foreign to me because you have to be you should be able to reach anybody. I mean, now you probably can't reach him like you reach Johnny, or I might not be able to reach him like I reach Cindy, but I can reach him some kind of way. You know, I can communicate with him some kind of way. I had him. I should know him. And that's the problem. You don't know your child. Get
And
to know your children.
right, there should be no reason for a parent to say, I didn't know my kid was like that, or I
Mm-hmm.
didn't know my kid was going to do. There, that's your child. You need to be
In tune with
involved
them.
in
Yes,
every aspect of your child's life.
absolutely. If you
You
knew
know,
that, you would have known this.
right? And relying on the schools to tell you
Mm-hmm.
that's unacceptable.
Right.
When we were growing up, if you were out doing something and you got in trouble,
Mm-hmm.
you got a whipping from mom.
Yeah,
Then when dad got home, you got a whipping.
that woman from there.
And Lord have mercy, God forbid, if we have relatives in the town.
Right, right. Like
Because you're going to get one from each one of them.
like Aunt Weedy, the pink fly swatter.
But that's the way it was. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, even when we were growing up, if a parent of our friends told us to do something and we didn't do
Mm-hmm.
it, they had no
Right,
problem in getting involved and
right.
getting on you and then calling your parents
And then call
and
your
telling
parents.
you, hey, your child did this. Nowadays, it's like, if they do that, you don't tell my child what to do.
Right,
Well, obviously, you're not doing it.
that's right.
So
Right.
somebody has to. And instead of correcting the child, they're supporting that child in their
Right,
actions. You
right,
know, there should be no reason why kids in elementary school are cussing out adults.
right.
There is no excuse in that. And like you said earlier, we have to take back the responsibility of raising children.
Mm-hmm.
And it's unfortunate that nowadays even grandparents are at the point where they're having to raise kids again
Yes,
because their children are having kids and they're not taking responsibility
not taking
of
responsibility.
their kids. So now the grandparents who should be enjoying their
Better
senior
than-
years
Yeah,
are now having to. Now, granted, you are raising Casey's children, but that wasn't by choice. That's because, unfortunately, Casey passed away. And so, which there again, you're taking on that responsibility, but another parent that should be involved. And because
right.
that's not happening, you're taking on that responsibility of raising your grandkids.
Mm-hmm.
But we have to do something about this.
Yeah,
You know, we have to, our society is putting a band-aid on a gunshot wound.
and that's it. That's it.
We got to stop the bleeding.
Mm-hmm. And it starts with us. It starts with the parents because we can't blame this. We can't blame the school system. We can't blame the jails. We can't. We got to. It starts at home.
Right.
It starts at home.
Yeah. I remember years ago, a lady, I think dad was doing prison ministry. But I remember
Mm-hmm.
she asked dad if he would take a Bible to the jail to her son.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember thinking, well, if you had done that before, he wouldn't be where he was
Right.
at,
Right.
you know?
Right.
And granted, like you said earlier, we're not saying that all parents are like this.
Right.
But what we're saying is that we got some parents that just aren't trying to be parents
They're
at
just
all.
not there. Mm-mm.
You took that responsibility, when you created that child,
Right.
and you have responsibility, you
Mhm.
know. And so many parents are putting careers in front of their families. They're
Right.
putting, and we know, I mean, we get it. There are some times where both parents have to work because the economy is bad. But our point is, and I'm sure you agree, Angela, is that even if you're both working, even if you both have to work extra hours and stuff, you
Mhm.
still need to know what your child is doing and what your child's up to.
Yes.
Spend those 15 minutes, 20 minutes when you get home from work to find
Mhm.
out what your child's doing. Some of these parents don't even know who the school teachers are.
Mhm.
And like you said, we've got to stop this and we've got to take a stand on the issue of regaining the rights of parents. And unfortunately, if the parent is not doing it, then the courts need to allow the grandparents to do this. I think it's a serious problem because the court's saying, no, you can't, but yet the courts, they don't want to deal with them. Their idea is to just lock them
Right.
up.
Right.
You just put them in the system, and then it becomes a revolving door for them.
Right.
You know,
Exactly.
and if the parents not going to do it, the courts and the government is saying that we can't do it, then
Mhm.
let the grandparents do it.
Let the grandparents do it.
You know, we got too many people that are trying to find excuses not to help these children
Mhm.
instead of help these children.
Right.
And I appreciate the fact that you've taken on this flight of writing a book about grandparents' rights. And some people think that, well, grandparents, they shouldn't have rights.
Mhm.
That's not their kid. Well, that's their blood relative.
That is right.
You know,
And some it's the closest thing you'll have to your parents.
right. You know, I mean, that grandparent is willing to take on that responsibility
Right.
of raising that child.
Right.
Then why don't the courts allow them to do
Allow
that?
that. Right.
You know, and encourage that instead of
Mhm. Putting them in
wanting to
foster care.
put those children in a system
Right.
that is not going to. I mean, you put them in a building with 150 other kids
Yeah.
that nobody cares about either.
Right.
You know, and this is your answer to that. Foster care it can be great, but I think holding parents accountable and
Mhm.
stop allowing the parents to walk away,
Right.
you know, from their responsibilities is
Mhm.
crippling our society.
Right.
You know, our parents, they, like I said, they were involved in every aspect of our lives, you
Mhm.
know, all the way up until we became adults. And even when we became adults, they were still in our lives and they were
Right.
still, we can always go to them with a problem or something. I remember
Right.
one year I was working a job, I did not like it, and I remember going over to mom and dad's house. Dad had that office upstairs, and I remember he was in his office, and I went in, and I kind of plopped on the couch, and dad looked at me, you know, first thing he's like, lost your mind, just come here and plop in.
Yeah.
And he looked at me, he said, bad day, and I started ran. I was like, yeah, you know, I hate working this job, I hate working with this person. I'm so sick of the employees. This is right after I got out of the military. And I remember dad sat there, he looked at me, he said, Tony, are you going to be part of the problem? You're going to be part of the solution. And I'm like, what the heck is that supposed to mean?
Mhm.
Are you going to be part of the problem? You're going to be part of the solution. If you don't like the ways that things are going, then do something about it. Start your own, make changes.
Mhm.
And that's how I got into working for myself. But dad was there. Here I
Yeah.
am, a grown man, but he was still involved in my life. I knew that I
Mhm.
could go to him. And even our parents, we got married and we had families and stuff. And if you had a disagreement with your spouse, mom and dad would not get involved.
Mhm. No, they were not.
They'd be like, hey, that's all life. Y'all need to work it out. But one thing that they wouldn't do, they wouldn't encourage
Mhm.
divorce. All they
Mhm.
would do is say, y'all need to work this out.
Right.
And
And
go ahead.
I never will forget when I was a teenage mother. I was 15 when I got pregnant, and I didn't know what to do as far as tell. I knew I could tell mom, you know, and that would be okay. But boy, I had to get through dad, and I didn't know when to tell dad. I said, boy, I guess the best thing to do would be to tell him when he's doing his sermon, because at least he'll be in the Bible and he can't kill me. So I said, I'll do that. I'll wait till Sunday morning when he's preparing his sermon. I'll just go in there and say, Daddy, I got something to tell you. And I'll just wait till he's really good in the Bible. And I said, Daddy, I'm pregnant. He said, how do you know? I'm like, well, and
Do you want
then
to get detailed?
and I put his hand on my stomach, and he said, like that. And I said, are you okay? He said, yeah. And he said, we'll talk about it after church. I said, okay. So then I thought, okay, I'll be okay then, because then it'd be after he done preached. So then we went to church and everything, and I'm like, oh, please hurry up and come on while you're still fresh. And then when we got home, he didn't say anything. I said, boy, he gonna cool off. I don't want him to cool off. I want him to still be in the spirit. So I went to him. I said, you okay? He said, mm-hmm. I said, oh boy, he's getting cool. So then he didn't say anything about it until the next day. And then he talked to me about it, but he wasn't angry. You know, he just kind of just talked to me about, you know, what I need to do and the next steps and things like that, you know. And he said, well, the sin was not in the baby, the sin was in the act, you know. And that made me feel good because I could come and talk to him about it. You know, he could have put me out, he could have hit me, he could have did all kind of stuff to me, you know. And you know, because some people don't get it that easy, you know. And I'm 15 years old, you know. And then I even when after I had him, you know, you know, daddy was so supportive and daddy was there, you know. And he came all the way from Blythe, Arkansas, where he was working, and you know, got there right before the delivery and everything. So, but daddy was there though, you know. That's what I can say. You know, my parents were supportive about everything, good and bad. You know, so you know, I just appreciate, you know, what we had, and I just, you know, pray that there's more out there, more people like them out there, you know, that are like minded, and you know, and I hope that there will be some more that will, you know, try to be like that, try to you know, bond with their children more, and see, so that, you know, so they can have a relationship with them.
This is what all this boils down to this conversation we had today is encouraging parents to be more active and knowing what their kids are doing and taking a more active role in a modern world. And part of this is what I do, and that's the Society of Ordinary Gentlemen. The Society of Ordinary Gentlemen is designed to help men get back to being gentlemen again.
Okay.
And it's a group of men and all over the world. We have members in Egypt, Africa, Saudi Arabia, Italy, Spain, Canada, Japan. We come together and we post things and we discuss things. We have on Sunday afternoon, we have a live lounge where we actually do like we're doing right now. We are online and there's men from all over and we come together, we talk about things. We talk about families. We talk about even we get into politics and not that who voted for who, but about laws concerning raising parents and raising kids and things like that. And we discuss these things and how we can improve being men. And so that's what society is about. And so I want to encourage the men that are listening today, or even just ladies that are catching this podcast. If you know a man that is looking to restore being a man again and living the life of the gentleman, I want you to go to this website right here at www.beagentleman.org. It's a website about the society. And before you join, I want you to just take some time, look at the website. And for those of you that are watching or listening to this podcast, and you want to see more or hear more about it, at the top corner, it'll say Gentlemen Forum. If you click on that, all the podcasts that we do for Gentlemen of Faith and Gentlemen's Forum are on there. And you can catch them. We are encouraging men to step up and take that responsibility. And something new that we're getting ready to start, and Angela, you might be interested in this, is that we're going to be launching the Ladies Society of Ordinary Ladies, and it's going to be a society just for women, just like we have it for men. I'm going to be the CEO of the Junior Society of Ordinary Gentlemen, which is going to be for young men aged 14 to 18 to help groom them into being gentlemen, so we can help break these cycles of a society where children are disrespectful, parents aren't raising their kids. We're trying to break this cycle. And Angela, thank you for coming on today, and I thank you for being a part of it. I would love to have you back on to some more podcasts so we can talk about things. You have such a loving spirit, and
Thank you.
you know, I've seen the work that you do as a minister, as an author, and I see you get involved with not just with church functions, but school functions. The heart that you have for kids, and I commend you for that. And I hope that this is some type of encouragement for other parents. And we said this earlier, our family went through a traumatic loss a couple years ago, but the foundation that we grew up on is what brought us through that. And I think that if more people would get back to the basics and let's bring the family back to being a family again, where as adults, if you have a child, whether on purpose, whether by accident, that is still your responsibility. Let's start raising our children the way that they need to be. And let's start making a difference in society. Let's stop waiting for the government to raise our children. Let's stop putting the responsibility on teachers. Get to know your children. Get to know who they are and who they hang out with. Get involved in their hobbies. You will find out how much you can learn from your kids if you just open up and let them talk. Now, having said that, I'm not saying is for you to become their friend and let them treat you like they're their friend. I'm saying that get involved and know what your kids are doing and teaching them the responsibility to respect adults and other things. Angela, thank you so much for being on the Gentleman's Faith podcast. And again, I would love to have you back on the podcast because there's so many things that we can talk about. And getting it from a female's perspective, it's great that other men can hear this because there are some men that are struggling and some of them just don't know. They don't know. And Angela, I'd like to have you on one day because I want to talk about what a woman looks for when looking for a man. What qualities do you look for? Because there are some women that think that, well, this is best as it gets. And unfortunately, there are some women that grew up in an abusive home. And so they think that this is what they have to look forward to. This is what they have to expect. So I'd like to have you back on one day and we can talk about, as a woman, what do you look for in a man? You know, when you found Mark, what qualities were you looking for? And Mark's a great guy. I'm glad to have him as a brother-in-law. And he's also a minister, a very educated man, and I'm looking forward to having him on the podcast as well. But I hope that those that are listening today will continue to follow us on the Gentleman's Forum and Gentleman's Faith podcast. And on behalf of myself and the Buntyn family, I want to thank you guys for joining us today. Thank you for being a part of it. And as always, I challenge you to be the best version of yourself as a gentleman that you can be. God bless you. Angela, thank you for coming on. And we'll
No
see you
problem.
guys again on the next episode of the Gentleman Faith Podcast. Be blessed.
Bye.